Welcome to our session, Obtaining Actionable Threat Intelligence Through Automation. I'm leading the threat intelligence team at CyberProof, and I'm pleased to host in this session Dov. Dov, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dov Lerner. I am Cybersixgill's security research lead. I specialize in malware research, really understanding what's out there on the deep and dark web, understanding all the types of fraud and malware and hacking and all the fun stuff that we see in this realm of the cyber underground.
Thank you, Dov. So as Howard mentioned, we are really inviting you to join our quiz after the presentation using Kahoot. And yeah, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so our agenda today, we will start in the beginning of the session with a quick overview of the deep and the dark web. Then we will continue with our technology and solution to find IOC and extracting it from the deep and the dark web sources using Cybersixgill technology. Then we will continue with the threat intelligence lifecycle, talk about it a bit, and also we will use this process in order to demonstrate a very interesting use case about Cobalt Strike detection. And now I will hand over to Dov.
Okay, so first of all, what are the deep and dark web? What is this realm? There's a lot of mystique, I would say misconceptions about what the deep and dark web are. So let's first discuss that. Next slide, or should I share my screen? There we go. Okay, fine. So now the deep and dark web is Tor, obviously, right? We have Tor. We know that these are sites with a .onion extension, but Telegram, Discord, QQ, Pastebin, GitHub, is GitHub the dark web? Why did I put this logo here? And it's a good question, right? I mean, the deep and dark web, though, it's not this place where hackers go to and discuss things. That's not what it is. It's really what I like to refer to as a community of communities. It's a place where actors anonymously conduct commerce and interact. So what does that mean? How is, again, GitHub part of the deep and dark web? Now, we prefer to call this a cyber underground, because the deep and the dark web, while that is a technical term for what is accessible, what's indexed by Google, .onion extension, I prefer to look at it in this function, right? So any place where there is anonymity built in by design, and the internet largely is built by that, with this in mind, but the deep and dark web are even more so. And then where this commerce can take place, and generally illegal commerce. Now, again, to harp on GitHub, because GitHub is part of Microsoft, there's plenty of malware hosted on GitHub. There's plenty of hacking tools, malicious scripts that you can find on GitHub as well. So the deep and dark web, this cyber crime underground, is really where you look for it. Obviously, the majority of this is on Tor, but we see a tremendous amount on Telegram as well. Next slide. But let's look at these different mediums and understand what these specific items are. What can we actually expect to see from them? So we have our forums. Now, the forums are established channels. Click, please. The forums have different themes, sub-themes, and languages. They're established sites. They have their user bases and they have relationships. There are discussions and transactions that take place in the forums, and a lot of action takes place in direct messages. So the forums are really these established places where a lot of things happen. Some forums are even 10 years old, 15 years old. Those are very, very old forums. Actors know one another by their usernames, so they don't know their actual identities, but they can know each other for many, many years. And they trust one another because, hey, I've interacted with this person several times over the last 5 years. I know this person, and therefore I can trust him when he offers me some sort of partnership for something. So the forums are really the main place to look for valuable intelligence. Next, we have our messaging apps. The messaging apps have different themes, sub-themes, and languages. So just like the forums, but unlike forums, well, we have some, for example, Telegram groups that are established. Others are ephemeral. So they'll pop up once, and then they might last several days or weeks, and then they'll close down. This makes it very difficult to track, right? How am I going to find enough Telegram groups or, again, Discord servers and know to follow them and to gain any valuable intelligence before they vanish? Also, this is more difficult because it means that I don't necessarily know who I'm talking to over a Telegram channel, because again, it's a name that pops up and disappears after a few weeks. On Telegram channels, on messaging apps, we have discussions and transactions, and they're short back and forth messages. So it's very difficult to find actionable, valuable intelligence, because it's just like reading someone else's WhatsApp messages back and forth. When are you going to get to the actual juicy intel items? Then we have our markets and credit card markets. Now, the deep and dark web are obviously a zero trust environment. I can't go to the police if the order of crystal meth that I put in on the dark web market doesn't arrive as advertised. So how do markets encourage the commerce to take place in this environment? We have accelerating feedback escrow for buyer protection. I would say this is the same model that eBay pioneered 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that I'm buying from someone and I don't necessarily trust the person, but I don't need to trust the person because I trust the site. So credit card markets and dark web markets, you're trusting the site when you're buying from them. Obviously, theoretically, don't actually buy from them. But because of this, then I can trust the site and I can buy from someone in the zero trust environment with all of this in mind. Lastly, we have our paste and repositories. These are huge dumps of data. So Pastebin, there is so much on Pastebin. I mean, there's, and it's bizarre, like, why did anyone upload this to Pastebin? Why is this here for 99% of items? But there's also good stuff there. I mean, there are compromised credentials, there's malware, hacking scripts, all sorts of things like that. So same thing with repositories, you just need to know what to look for and how to look. Now, taking this in mind, what are the actual threats that we can expect to see from the deep and dark web? What are actors actually doing? There are who's out there. So there are a lot of, again, misconceptions, I would say, mystique about this deep and dark web being this realm where you can go in and read tomorrow's headline. That's really not true. No actor is going to say, hey, everyone, my name is X, and I'm going to be attacking this and this organization tomorrow. Here's my IP address. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's the compromised initial access. And then I'm going to go from there through the network. It's not like that. If it was that easy, I probably wouldn't have a job, but also it would be way too easy to defend our organizations from these threats. And so it's not that easy. Actors are not stupid. But who are these actors that are actually out there? First, the majority of actors on deep and dark web are script kiddies. I know script kiddie is a derogatory term, and I don't mean any offense, but the majority of actors on the deep and dark web, I would say, skew younger, probably late teens, early 20s, get the vibe. There's a lot of overlap between them and the gaming community or the crypto enthusiast community. So it's around that age. These are actors that are trying to make a few bucks. Now, they might be doing so by getting free Netflix or Disney Plus credentials because, hey, why not? I don't want to pay for a streaming service. Or they might be involved in something a little bit more illegal, but again, a lower sophistication and lower reward type of attack. They're not there to carry out a massive bank heist because they just don't know how to do it. They're there to consume the tools that others share, the TTPs that others share for free. Obviously, if you want to pay, you can get much more advanced knowledge about things. But if someone shares, for free how to attack something or how to get into something, then the script kiddies will be all over it. Then we have the proficient hackers. These are people who actually know what they're doing. They know how to write code. They understand cybersecurity. They understand the attack cycle and how to actually, from reconnaissance to exploitation, how to actually get in. A lot of these are people who are selling services, right? Hey, I can hack your ex-girlfriend's Instagram account. We see that a lot. They're also offering tools. They can sell, again, a malware tool, credential stuffing tool, whatever it is, and they can also sell all sorts of compromised infrastructure and other things that are important for an attack. So that their presence on the deep and dark web is very much offering tools and services. Next, we have the crime syndicates. The crime syndicates takes things a step further. They have the proficient hackers in them, but they also know how anti-fraud mechanisms work. And they have the capacity to avoid them. They understand what PayPal does or what the banks do in order to catch fraud, and they try to sidestep them. They probably have a large presence, or most of them have a large presence in many different countries. So they're able to, let's say, bribe officials or understand local banking laws and have some sort of that allows them to act with impunity, which is very important. And so they're able to carry out much more sophisticated schemes because of that. And also keep in mind, they're the ones largely selling credit cards, for example, on underground markets or narcotics, things like that. That's a crime syndicate. It's not some guy selling from his garage. Lastly, the APTs. These are the state actors, the ones that everyone wants to see, but just like a script kiddie doesn't say, hi, my name is X and I'm going to attack this and this organization. All the more so, no one's going to say, hi, my name is Y and I belong to the APT 26 or I belong to the People Liberation Army and I'm just want to say hi and who's out there who wants to chat. It doesn't work like that. We know that the government actors are lurking on the underground, but if you look for them and expect to find them, you're going to be very disappointed. Next slide. So along this same spectrum, we can map out the types of attacks that we see from the deep and dark web. The majority of attacks fall into the lower complexity, lower reward type of attacks. We have our checkers and crackers, which are credential stuffing tools, very straightforward. Then we have our fraud and spamming tools. Again, basic fraud. I'm not talking about a complex bank heist. Very easy. I can find spamming services, email lists, endlessly on the deep and dark web. Phishing, same thing. I can find phishing kits, phishing services, also credentials from phishing attacks. Those are there in great numbers. Crypto miners, ransomware. Already we're moving up the list. These are more and more sophisticated types of attacks. If you want to deploy ransomware on a corporate network, it's much more difficult. You need to know how to get in, how to spread it throughout the network, how to handle the negotiations, the payment and everything. It's not so simple. There are only a few dozen groups in the world that are doing it very well. And often on the deep and dark web, we can find them looking for affiliates, although some underground forums have recently banned those groups because they do not like the attention that they attract. Then we'll go back 1 second. We have our known exploits. A lot of actors will discuss exploits to certain vulnerabilities. They're circulating around the deep and dark web for a very long time. Also, again, GitHub, there are lots of exploits being written there. If you want to use them for pen testing, as long as you have permission, that's totally fine. And someone who wants to use them for malicious entrance, again, knows where to find them. Credit card sniffers, skimmers, again, it's the same thing, that these are very difficult attacks to inject a skimmer into an e-commerce site, collect credit cards, sell all those credit cards, monetize the attack quite hard. And 0 days, just like APTs, if someone posts that they have a 0 day on the dark web forum, I don't believe them. It's not something that we would generally believe. There are much more secret and lucrative ways to traffic 0 days. Next slide. Okay, so with all that in mind, and this was a lengthy introduction to what the deep and dark web are, how do we find IOCs in this realm? What can we expect, right? If actors aren't oversharing, how can I expect to find a hash, domain, a malicious IP address? Where does that fit into this concept of discourse over forums or messaging apps or whatever? So next slide. I like to say that the deep and dark web are a supply chain of malicious infrastructure. And this means that the actors on the deep and dark web go on because it's a real open market. And just like in any marketplace, there is a specialization of labor, right? Different actors who are skilled in particular labor decide to focus on one specific thing that they do very well, right? The competitive advantage. So no one's making the whole shoe. One person's making the leather, one person's making the design for the shoe, one person's making the laces, one person's assembling everything. So the same thing happens with the deep and dark web. If an actor figures out a specific type of attack and how to do that attack well, then they'll just monetize that and they'll do that over and over again and sell that as opposed to carrying out the entire attack chain. So let's look at some examples of what we can expect to find. First scenario, malware. An actor writes malware. Now, an actor can use that malware for themselves, right? If I have created malware, I can now web attack someone, or I can distribute that malware on the deep and dark web. I can sell it, I can share it for free, and then any third party can download it and use it however they want. Next scenario is an actor will compromise a domain, so they'll establish shell access to a domain. Again, I can use that myself, I can weaponize it, or I can sell the access on the deep and dark web. Anyone that now purchases the domain can upload a CNC server, phishing page, or malware server. So we have the first stage, which is the compromise, then the sale, and then the weaponization for both of these scenarios. Next, again, the domain name, I can register a domain. I can sell that domain name on the deep and dark web, and anyone can now purchase it, right? Totally legitimate to register a domain, but once it's sold on the deep and dark web now, I would say that's very suspicious. And the last scenario, RDP. So a threat actor can crack an RDP connection. They can do whatever they want themselves, or they can distribute the RDP credentials on the deep and dark web. RDP is a great initial entrance vector for ransomware, but there are all sorts of things that one can do with compromised RDPs. Okay, so now generally, after all these happen, the attack is deployed. And a telemetry-based feed, right? So if a intelligence vendor, next slide, is looking at, if an intelligence vendor is looking at the gateway or the endpoint, right, an EDR or firewall, whatever it is, they're going to catch the IOCs once an attack is deployed. Next. Right. So, however, in what we look at, right, we're looking at the deep and the dark web, and Cybersixgill is looking at this distribution on the deep and the dark web. So we actually discover things a lot earlier. We discover things, next slide, as that they're being transacted on deep and dark web. We call this our dark feed, which is a feed of malicious IOCs that we discover from the dark web. Let's look at a few one example of what we can find from that. This is an example of a domain, a compromised domain that was put up for sale. This is goldenarrowtourbus.com, which according to their website, it is a Golden Arrow Coaches. It's a Canadian Western Canadian tour bus company. It looks beautiful. This pastoral bus ride through the Canadian Rockies. Someday I would like to go, but that's not the point. The point is that a shell access to this domain was being sold on an underground market for like $4. The tour bus company obviously focuses on the quality of their buses and not the quality of their security. They're not even using HTTPS, which is a big red flag. And so again, the domain is compromised. Now, if we dig a little bit in this domain, go to the next slide, we can see that there's a shady gambling site, goldenarrowtourbus.com/online-slots-aristocrat. And we see this online casino. Someone has put up this page on this tour bus domain. Now, I cannot say if whoever put this page up purchased access from this underground market. They might have, or they might have figured out through other means that this domain was easily compromised and gotten themselves. But this is a good example of something that once a domain is compromised, now anyone could do whatever they want with it. And this is just what we can find in the domain. If someone's using non-HTTP protocol to weaponize it, right, once they got in, they could do a lot more damage to this website that might not even be visible from just through a browser. Next. So that's the value of blocking these domains from the deep and dark web. Again, we can look at this infrastructure that's being sold and shared, and once we see that, then we can understand this should be blocked now as opposed to waiting for something to be weaponized.
Thank you, Dov, for the interesting part about dark feed and the useful example. Now, in order to continue the session, we will deep dive into a real-life example. But let's start with talking a bit about the intelligence cycle, which will be followed together with the use case. Okay, so the intelligence cycle. The intelligence lifecycle is a process that first developed by the CIA, but nowadays many threat intelligence teams are using that for making threat intelligence actionable. This cycle outlines the core steps to draw conclusions and take actions based on the intelligence data. In the next slides, what we are going to have is to see a specific use case and to go through the cycle step by step and to see how we convert threat intelligence from being unstructured into a structured format and to a finished intelligence. This will be very interesting to see how we can make the intelligence machine readable and actionable and not just a post in the dark web that is very interesting to read. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Here we are seeing the intelligence cycle starts from the planning and direction. This is the first step. And here, planning and direction, okay? So planning and direction is about the responsibility of threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is about to answer questions about the adversary in order to inform organizational decision-making at 3 different levels, okay? So the first level is strategic intelligence. Strategic intelligence is more risk-based intelligence that is used by decision makers in order to change sometimes policy based on the attack surface. Sometimes it's in order to purchase even another security tool that will enable a better coverage and analysis, okay? This intelligence is more for, as I mentioned, like risk-based and broader, like for high-level decision makers. The second level is operational intelligence. Operational intelligence enable prioritization and tuning of mitigating controls. What this specifically means is that in some cases, in the security operation and even in the security at all at the company, we will have different teams. We will have the threat hunting team, and we will have the vulnerability management team. And a very interesting use case of operational intelligence could be where threat intelligence helps vulnerability management team with prioritizing the top CVE or the top vulnerabilities that should be prioritized for patch management. We know that our intelligence can be used in order to have quick patches for the relevant exploited vulnerabilities that are being discussed in hacking forums or in other intelligence data. Then we have the third layer or the third level, which is tactical intelligence. Tactical intelligence can function as a protective and detective control. And what does it mean? It means that this level of intelligence aims to automate intelligence data and integrate it into security teams. If the strategic and operational threat intelligence are more aimed to other teams or decision makers, here we want to feed and use intelligence for security system. We want to make it automated. We want to make the intelligence flowing into our controls, okay? So as you probably guess, the level that we are going to focus today as part of the SOC Masterclass event, which are targeting the SOC users and SOC leaders, is the tactical level, where we will show the use case and demonstrate how threat intelligence from the dark web can be very actionable and very flowing and prevent and detect threats. Now I will hand over to Dov for the collection phase.
Okay, so collection. First of all, in general, collection is a very big challenge because the amount of data in the world is growing exponentially. And as a cyber threat intelligence analyst, often the challenge is to understand not how to get as much as possible, but how do we optimize our intelligence so we're getting both quality and quantity. Very, very big difference. Now, looking at the specific case that we're dealing with, what we notice is that there's a post on a hacking community forum, and a threat actor reported that they have a new build of Cobalt Strike. They built this by compiling cracked source code that was shared earlier on a Chinese forum. So it was shared on the Chinese forum on August 26th, and then September 2nd, it appeared on a different forum. And the actor posted this file to Anon Files for anyone to download. Anon Files is like an underground version of Dropbox or Google Drive. You can upload any file, share it anonymously, obviously, and then whoever wants can download it. Okay, so what is Cobalt Strike? Cobalt Strike is a popular commercial tool created for pen testing used to emulate a breach or malware attack. It is very, very highly functional, right? Keep in mind that to produce a hacking tool takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of expertise. Why, if you're a threat actor, why use something that you created or buy something off of a different shady underground dealer when you can go for a pen testing tool that does the same things, that does everything you want it to do? As long as you deploy it legally, Cobalt Strike is a legitimate tool, and someone who deploys it illegally is obviously a malicious hacker. Okay, so what does Cobalt Strike even do? It has stealthy techniques and ability to mostly execute a memory, so it's fileless It doesn't affect the file system, so it's very evasive. It has adjustable command and control communications with covert channels. So, you can talk over HTTP, or you can also tunnel over DNS. There are a lot of different things you can do. It has extended attack capabilities and techniques. You can really have full control over the system, the file system. You can even put in your own scripts, right? So once you have Cobalt Strike Beacon, as it's called, installed on the target computer, then you can really do whatever you want to that computer. And you can upload all sorts of custom scripts from wherever. And then it's utilizing multiple MITRE techniques and tactics, meaning this is the full attack and exploitation chain. You could do whatever you want. So Cobalt Strike is a real Swiss Army knife tool that, again, a pen tester can use to understand how vulnerable the network is, or an attacker can use to understand how vulnerable the network is in order to get whatever they're after. On the same thread, another actor shared a virus total scan of the build to show that this is malware free, right? So again, the scenario is that a threat actor said, hey, everyone, I found Cobalt Strike on this forum, the cracked source code. I compiled it, here you go. And then another actor wrote, I don't know if you can somehow find this file and put it in the directory, but everything else seems fine. I also found no malware, and they share the virus total scans. Why would an actor do this? Why would an actor share the scan of virus total for this Cobalt Strike file? Now, I say this, in order to understand this, we have to remember this is a zero trust environment in the deep and dark web. Anybody could say, hey, everyone, I found this really cool hacking tool. Feel free to download and use it, and then embed it with a Trojan, with a rat, and therefore gain their own access to whoever downloads it. We see this frequently. Or, for example, cracked movies, cracked games. I can share a cracked game on the deep and dark web and embed my own command control functionality in it, and therefore whoever downloads the game, now I can control that. So actors will share scans of their own tools on VirusTotal to say, hey, this is fine, this is legitimate software, there's nothing in it. That's scenario number one. Or scenario number two is to say this is something that's malicious, but it's good quality. There's no one's detecting this as malicious. So you can use it and be calm about it, right? That I'm trying to sell you this malware. Now, this is the first scenario, right? A different actor checked to see if this was actually legitimate or not. When they do that, they share the scan to VirusTotal on this underground forum. This is great because VirusTotal scans have a pattern, virustotal.com/gui/file/ and then the SHA-256 of the file. So once we see that, the B97DB, I'm not going to read the whole thing, that is the SHA-256 of this file. We extract that, we have the hash of this Cobalt Strike file. Even if, for example, the anon files gets wiped out, if that gets erased, which often happens, if it can sometimes last a few minutes or hours or days on there and be erased. But now we have the VirusTotal scan, so we have the SHA-256 of this file, and now we can publish this into our feed. Next slide. This hash actually represents an unknown build of Cobalt Strike. No one else has seen this before because this was custom compiled and shared by a threat actor in a forum. No one else is looking at the dark web forums and looking for IOCs like we do. The file is listed as cobaltstrike.exe. You can see this at VirusTotal. It has 0 detections, but it did trigger all the YAR rules for Cobalt Strike on VirusTotal. So we know this is Cobalt Strike, but no other vendors are flagging this as malicious because it didn't cross any gateway yet. This is the moment it happened. Next slide. Next. So I dug a little deeper, and I also found that the same hash was shared a week previously in a different forum, meaning it was shared originally in this Chinese-speaking forum, and then it went from there to 2 English-speaking forums. So there was a crossover. It went from one place to another fairly quickly. Now, so getting this threat intelligence from the deep and dark web requires processing a huge amount of unstructured data, right? The ability to look at these posts and first of all, collect from all these sites, then to make sense of the sites, to be able to say, okay, this is the actor and this is the data of the post, and to do this all in real time and automatically and maintain persistent connection to these forums is extremely difficult. And it includes machine learning that allows us to both collect from the sites continuously and also classify and detect the threats. And this is how we go from an actor sharing a post on a dark web forum to an IOC of a previously unknown build of a very malicious hacking or very powerful hacking tool. Now we have the IOC, now we have the SHA-256. I will pass it back to Orel and she will explain what we did with this.
Thank you, Dov. Okay, so after getting the processing phase, we are moving to the analysis phase, and it's a very important move. Why? Because until the analysis phase, we are still in the external perimeter, but right now we are trying to take the intelligence into the internal perimeter and to scan and detect and even prevent these threats from the specific environment of the enterprise, okay, of the client, wherever it be. Okay, so when we are going to the analysis phase, we are coming with questions, okay? We want to see if this threat was already found in or detected in the environment, and we are looking for security issues that are associated with this specific threat, okay? So here, as you can see, the IOCs that was processed and extracted from the dark web, from the unstructured data from a post in a hacking forum, became an object that is a machine readable. And now you can go and check this IOC, this hash. Since it's a hash, you can check it against 4 different security logs. The first one is EDR, the second is the firewall threat protection, the third is the email threat protection, and the last one is NGAV logs. Okay, once the dark feed, raw data, is being collected, the CyberProof CTI solution integrates this feed to detect and prevent threats in the relevant security systems. Okay, so in the analysis phase, as I mentioned earlier, what we are looking for is potential security issues, and if we are finding any of indication of a real threat, our responsibility is to notify the relevant team. And if we go back to the planning and direction phase, which was the first step of the intelligence cycle, it is very important to report about these specific findings to the SOC analyst to start an investigation and to see how this threat could be remediated. Now we will move to the dissemination phase. After integrating these IOC into the relevant security system, a hit was detected, okay? We see that the hash exists, the Cobalt Strike 4.4 cracked version hash was detected in one of the hosts of our client's environment, okay? So this requires, one, prevention, and second, investigation. The EDR capability is automatically preventing the execution of the file, which makes us more comfortable, but still there is no case that Cobalt Strike cracked version is standing in one of our hosts, So we need to start an investigation, and this is very important phase that is being part of the alert that is being triggered into the SIEM and directly after into the SOAR solution that CyberProof use, named CDC, CyberProof Defense Center. Here in this phase, as you can see, it's important that the SOC analyst starts the investigation of the malicious file and creates the CDC incident. Why it's important not to stay only in the SIEM? It's very important because in order to have an effective investigation, you need to use some integrations with the client's environment machines or platforms, and this is what SOAR enables you. Also to automate some of the processes and to have a collaboration platform. The CDC enable also to call the relevant teams like threat hunting, like incident response, like vulnerability management to provide their support and add their context to this specific incident until the threat is remediated. And also the recommendation is implemented for the long term, so we will not see again this type of threat today or tomorrow or next week, okay? So In the next slide, what we are going to see is a screenshot from the CDC, the SOAR solution, and I will explain what we are seeing in this screen. So as you can see, this is an incident named CTI EDR detection of IOC from the dark web. We see that the priority came, as you can see here in the left side of the screen. The priority is high. The status is open in L2, which is the relevant team. We see that it came with tags. And why it's important? Because imagine that SOC L1 analysts are getting a lot of incidents and alerts to take care of. We need to automate our processes with as much as we can, more and more context, okay? And to tag the information and to share all the contextualized tags and observables that could help the SOC L1 to understand where it is, okay? What's going on. As you can see, it comes with the IOC, Cobalt Strike, CTI, Darkfeed, executable, and hashtags, and also a description. And in the right side of the screen, you can see that there is the chat ops. Okay, so Simo, our virtual analyst, reported that he found the detection of the file in the EDR logs. He also reported on the specific occasions where it was found. And we are understanding that this is a CTI incident. We need the manual investigation and our expert team to check and enrich the information to get more understanding of the incident itself. Because until now, it's a hit, it's a lead for investigation, but we need more, to get to understand what is really a threat about. Okay, so in the dissemination phase, we are talking about the CTI enrichment. So we took this hash, okay, our team, and started pivoting and checking and enriching more and more IOCs that could potentially shed more light and detect associated threats. The IOCs that we collected can be used for threat hunting also to create a more accurate set of detection rules or detections. As you can see here, we used also our threat intelligence platform to enrich the data, to see what this threat is about, what attacks are associated with that, and to filter out all the noise and to extract only the true positive indicators that can enrich and to be scanned against the whole network of the environment. Now we continue with the CTI enrichment. As you can see, there is another enrichment of a sample of cracked Cobalt Strike infected version that could be downloaded for malware analysis and extraction of behavior. And this is very important because in the end of the day, IOCs are very good for detection, initial detection, but sometimes we also need to enrich our intelligence reporting to IOAs, okay, to behavior checks. And this enables us also to provide Yara rule, which is provides a better detection and more hermetic solution for scanning. Now, we reported about the IOCs and the Yara rule for this specific threat to scan against the whole network and to collaborate with the threat hunting team, which experts on finding these specific threats on the network. Besides that, using our automation and the integration to other platform of the client, we could find that the specific user is a user that is located in the on-call branch and also is positioned as an IT engineer. This took us to understand that maybe there is an IT support engineer that was interested in testing or checking this tool. It can be for malicious use or even just for interest. In this point, we don't know. We don't have this context about this guy. And this is the time to do the escalation, okay? So right now, we are moving to the last phase of the intelligence cycle, which is the feedback, which also super important, where we can do incident escalation for verification and remediation, full remediation by the client itself. The feedbacks that we will receive from the client allows the next intelligence cycle to be based on complete and accurate information. This helps us to continue improving and to be more accurate in our intelligence reporting. And also now, if we found that the one of the IT engineer in the IT department really could download a cracked version of Cobalt Strike into their enterprise machine, it means that there are some security policies that should be changed, okay? Or there is another user behavior that should be added. So these are stuff for the long term that it is important to see that if you don't catch it from one side, there are intelligence that can be supportive for this investigation. And what interesting is that without information from the dark web, we could even wait for that or maybe detect it after execution. So this is another important thing. What we will see now when we are closing this use case is the intelligence cycle again. I hope you already familiar with that from the previous slides that I was sharing. But now we will not go one by one as previously. What we are going to do is to summarize what we have seen. Okay, so in the beginning, we discussed about the planning and direction. The planning and direction, as you remember, are detecting threats from the dark web as a SOC team leader or as a CISO in the company or as a security engineer. I want intelligence to be ingested to my security tools, real-time intelligence without waiting for any decision maker to be ingested to the security tools and to help with monitoring and prevention. And this is what was the direction that we got. We talked about tactical intelligence. Later, there was the collection phase where Dov explained and shared the Cobalt Strike cracked version in a hacking forum. This hash was just automatically collected from the post in the dark web. And by that, we move to the processing phase. The processing step is about making Cobalt Strike hash delivered by the dark feed, which is integrated to our tools, and to make it machine readable, actually, okay? Now, in the analysis step or the analysis phase, we discussed about the goal. The goal is to see if there is any security issue related to this threat. And what we did is to scan these hash against the security system for detection and prevention. We saw in this phase that the EDR detected it and prevented it from execution, but we continued the investigation in the dissemination phase. In the dissemination phase, we saw that the SIEM dark web alert was triggered. It's not only in the SIEM, it also was triggered in the CDC, in the source solution for collaboration and enrichment needs. And deep investigation was taken care with some CTI enrichment and other team enrichment. Then we had the feedback, the incident remediation, and I can tell you that by having more IOCs and enriching the little hash that was reported, we could find and hunt for another instances of Cobalt Strike in the environment. And even if it wasn't related to the first hash, this triggered a whole investigation that could prevent even a ransomware infection in the client side. So this is a very important use case, and the enrichment and the automation is something that really assists with preventing the threat. And yeah, I will move to the next slide. Okay, so I will hand over to Dov. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the takeaways from this, though? What are we actually learning beyond this exercise about finding a very interesting sample of Cobalt Strike being shared? I would say that this event reflects the speed at which the underground moves. The cracked source code was shared at one forum, and then actors took it, compiled it, and shared it on 2 other forums. And also, the linguistic differences are very interesting because it hopped from a Chinese-speaking forum to 2 English-speaking forums. From there, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of threat actors could have seen those posts and downloaded the malware, shared it however they wanted, and used it for malicious means. This shows just how agile the underground is. right? The threat actors are always looking for new ways of getting in. They might be script kiddies, they might be even more advanced than that, but they're always reading, watching, learning, and listening. And so the enemy is very, very agile. And I would say that in order to counteract that, we need the intelligence cycle to be agile as well. If what Orel showed about the intelligence cycle, if every phase is slow and cumbersome and waits for this feedback process to happen, then things fall between the cracks and the enemy will move very, very quickly. The defense needs to be agile. The defense needs to integrate automation, quick processes, quick decision-making into as many of the schemes as possible. And only then can the defense really stand a chance against all of these attackers. Next. Yeah, go for it, sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Dov, for introducing this very important bullet. I will deep dive into the second key takeaway that I took from this incident, and again from one incident to other. And first, I will share that many people tell, and in the security domain, a lot of experts sometimes share that dark web, it's like old-fashioned. Okay, it's very interesting that they're talking about something, but how I can make it actionable? It's too far from the security operation. In some cases, people think like that. But in this specific case, we could see that there is no intelligence expert that sits with, for 20 hours conducting a threat intelligence report and sharing that in a format that maybe could be actionable. We could see that dark web intelligence could be super super clear and super comfortable or like flowing to the security systems, and it's not something that that requires a lot of work or a lot of human CTI or any expert in threat intelligence to make it actionable. And I think that as a threat intelligence provider or as a SOC provider, managed MSSP provider, we all the time look on how to enrich our intelligence sources, and the fact that we can use dark feed in order to have these very direct integration from these deep and dark web sources to the real monitoring, the SOC monitoring side, enable us to feel more comfortable with these threats and to find very interesting cases that support us to have a safer environment and more confident with our security services to our clients. And I mean, I hope that this bullet also was clear. And I mean, in this specific case, we could detect and prevent a potential attack that was in the pre-attack phase, and it even help us with mitigating these type of threats for the future. So thank you for listening to us, and I guess that we will move to the questions. I see that there are many questions in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dov and Orel. There are a couple of questions that did come up. Would you like to handle them now? If you click on the QA, you can see there are a couple of questions there.
So I'll do the number 2. IOC means it already occurred. It is a reactive approach. Then why go for threat hunting? Very good answer. I mean, question, sorry. I'll hopefully give a good answer as well. Yes, the ideal in any scenario is we want to take an IOC, we want to block it. We want the prevention to happen. And so obviously, if you're consuming a feed of IOCs, then you want to make sure that those IOCs never cross into your network. But keep in mind that there are many different ways that this file might appear in the network. One of them could be that the person downloaded it from the site from a network computer. They could have also brought it on a thumb drive or emailed it to themselves. We might not always be able to prevent it. So therefore, we want to be able to have the capabilities to threat hunt and detect it. But yes, obviously, if we are in detection mode as opposed to prevention mode, that's less preferable. We want to prevent it from even coming in.